In the late 1930s, the world stood on the brink of a conflict unlike any seen before. The political and economic climate was teetering on a precarious edge, especially in Europe. Nations clung to the fragile peace left in the wake of World War I, a conflict that had promised to end all wars. Little did they know, an even more catastrophic storm was brewing. In Germany, the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party had set in motion a series of events that would upset the delicate balance of power. Hitler, with his charismatic speeches and promises of a rejuvenated Germany, had managed to consolidate his grip on the nation. He had a vision of a German empire that would dominate Europe, and he was ready to defy the terms of the Treaty of Versailles to realize it. Meanwhile, the aggressive expansionist policies of Japan and Italy were also causing ripples of unease. Japan, with its eyes set on the resources of Asia, was flexing its military muscle, while Italy, under the rule of Benito Mussolini, was nurturing dreams of a new Roman Empire. Britain and France, the guardians of the status quo, found themselves in a difficult position. Haunted by the specter of the Great War, they adopted a policy of appeasement, hoping to prevent another global conflict. They allowed Hitler to reclaim the Rhineland and watched as Italy invaded Ethiopia, all in the name of maintaining peace. But this policy was not without its critics. Winston Churchill, a lone voice in the wilderness, warned that this appeasement would only encourage the dictators. Yet his words fell on deaf ears. The world, it seemed, was willing to pay any price to avoid war. As the decade drew to a close, tensions were high. The world watched as Germany, Italy, and Japan formed the Axis alliance, a pact that promised mutual support in the event of war. The world held its breath, waiting, watching, and thus the stage was set for the most devastating war in human history. On September 1st, 1939, Hitler's forces invaded Poland, sparking the beginning of World War II. This invasion was a clear violation of Poland's sovereignty and marked the start of Hitler's aggressive expansionist policies. In the early years of the war, the world watched in stunned silence as the Nazi war machine swept across Europe. With a terrifying blend of technological superiority and brutal tactics, Hitler's forces quickly overran the Low Countries and France. The rapid fall of France, once considered the most powerful nation in Europe, sent shockwaves around the globe. Meanwhile, across the Channel, the United Kingdom stood alone against the Nazi onslaught. The Battle of Britain, as it came to be known, was a brutal campaign of air warfare. The British Royal Air Force, though heavily outnumbered, fought with tenacity and courage, defending their skies against the German Luftwaffe. Their resilience became a beacon of hope in a dark time, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. Simultaneously, the tendrils of conflict were reaching out, extending the war beyond the borders of Europe. In North Africa, the desert became a battleground as Axis and Allied forces clashed. The Balkans, too, were drawn into the maelstrom as Hitler sought to secure his southern flank. But the war was about to take on a truly global dimension. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, a naval base in Hawaii. This act of aggression brought the United States, a sleeping giant, into the fray. The American entry into the war marked a significant turning point. The United States brought immense industrial capacity and a fresh wave of troops to the Allied cause. The war was no longer confined to the fields of Europe or the sands of Africa. It had spread to the vast expanses of the Pacific Ocean, the jungles of Southeast Asia, and the skies over America. With the entry of the United States, the war had truly become a global conflict. By 1942, the Axis powers seemed unstoppable, but the tide was about to turn. The year was 1942, and the world was in the throes of a brutal war. The Axis powers, with their aggressive expansion and military prowess, seemed invincible. But as the year progressed, a series of pivotal battles marked a turning point in World War II. One of the most significant of these was the Battle of Stalingrad. This was an epic confrontation between the Axis and the Soviet Union in the frozen city of Stalingrad. The battle raged on for over 5 months, from August 1942 to February 1943, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Yet the Soviets, with their indomitable spirit and tenacity, managed to encircle and defeat the German Sixth Army. This victory marked a crucial turning point on the Eastern Front, signifying the beginning of the end for the Axis powers in the East. Meanwhile, Thousands of miles away, in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, another critical battle was taking place. The Battle of Midway, fought in June 1942, saw the United States Navy decisively defeat an attacking fleet of the Imperial Japanese Navy. This victory marked a significant turning point in the Pacific theater, halting Japanese expansion and shifting the balance of power in favor of the Allies. As the tide of the war began to turn, the Allies seized the opportunity to strike a blow against the Axis powers in Europe. In 1943, they launched an invasion of Italy, eventually leading to the fall of Mussolini. The once invincible Axis powers were now on the defensive, their dreams of world domination crumbling. The momentum of the war had shifted, and the end began to seem possible. It was a time of change, a time of hope, a time when the world held its breath, watching as the course of history was being altered. It was a time of turning tides. The final years of the war were marked by some of the most intense fighting and the most horrific atrocities. As the tide of the war slowly began to shift, the stakes seemed to only grow higher, the battles more desperate. On June 6, 1944, the Allied forces launched the largest amphibious invasion in history, now known as D-Day. Thousands of troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, France, in a decisive battle that marked the beginning of the end for the Axis powers in Europe. Yet even as the Allies pushed forward, they uncovered a chilling reality. Across Europe, they liberated concentration camps and discovered the full extent of the Holocaust. Millions had been systematically murdered in a genocide of unprecedented scale. The world watched in horror as the true depths of human cruelty were laid bare. In the winter of that same year, the Battle of the Bulge erupted, as Germany launched a surprise counteroffensive in a last-ditch effort to halt the Allied advance. It was the largest and bloodiest single battle fought by the United States in World War II, but the Allies held the line, and Germany's defeat became inevitable. The fall of Berlin in May 1945 marked the end of Nazi Germany, yet the war was not over. The Pacific theater remained active, and the conflict reached a terrifying climax when the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August. The devastation was unimaginable, and the world was introduced to the terrifying power of nuclear weapons. The use of atomic bombs marked a turning point in warfare and in human history. The cost of the war had been high, and the world was forever changed. On September 2, 1945, Japan surrendered, ending World War II. The world breathed a sigh of relief, yet it was a relief tempered by the knowledge of the immense human suffering that had occurred, and the understanding that the world could never return to what it had been before the war. The world that emerged from the ashes of World War II was a vastly different place. The rubble and ruin left in the wake of this devastating conflict served as a stark reminder of the human capacity for destruction and the need for mechanisms to prevent such a catastrophe from happening again. Among the most significant outcomes was the establishment of the United Nations in 1945. This intergovernmental organization was created with the aim of promoting peace and cooperation among nations, hoping to prevent another global conflict of such magnitude. The UN Charter, its founding document, set forth principles of human rights, respect for sovereignty, and peaceful resolution of disputes, echoing the collective yearning for a more harmonious world. Yet even as one conflict ended, another was brewing. The end of World War II marked the start of the Cold War, a global power struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union that lasted for almost half a century. While it didn't result in direct warfare between the two superpowers, it profoundly shaped international relations and led to numerous proxy wars around the globe. War-torn Europe also saw the emergence of new nations. The decolonization of Africa and Asia began as countries previously under European colonial rule fought for and gained their independence. This period marked a shift in global power dynamics and set the stage for the geopolitical landscape we know today. The creation of the State of Israel in 1948, a direct response to the Holocaust, was another significant consequence of the war. Born out of a desire to provide a homeland for Jewish people after the horrors they had endured, its establishment has had lasting implications for the Middle East. World War II was not just a historical event, but a transformative period that continues to echo through the decades. Its aftermath and legacy reach far beyond the battlefield, shaping the political, social, and cultural fabric of the world. World War II left a lasting legacy, shaping the world we live in today.